presentation is going to talk you through how you answer the question, to what extent was poverty the cause of popular radicalism from 1790 to 1819? Now, we started to look at this topic in lesson, so the point of this presentation is to build upon the knowledge we've already discussed and to show you how you would apply this to the question. So as per usual, we would go through the 4 steps. Step 1, as you can see, is identify the keywords or concepts, which I've done for you already on the question. Step number 2, list your options. A really good thing to do, even though it is technically optional. It will help you in the exam if it's a difficult question, and it helps you to think about the things that you could mention in this question and help keep your answers sharp and focused. That should only take you 60 seconds in the exam. It's not something you spend a lot of time on, and as you can see here, I've listed the possible options for this question being amongst poverty, French Revolution, harsh taxation and class legislation. Step number 3, identify your level 5 word or concept. Now in this case, the level 5 word is quite subtle. It's actually the word the. So to what extent was poverty the cause of popular radicalism? The word the implies that poverty is the main reason, it's the cause as opposed to a cause. If the question was to what extent was poverty a cause, you just need to discuss the relation from poverty to popular radicalism. But the fact that the question is saying poverty is the cause implies that poverty has a greater role to play than any other factor. So once you've identified the as our level 5 word, that leads us to setting our criteria, which you can see I've already put on the screen for you. So for poverty to be the main cause for popular radicalism, the times of greatest support would coincide with when poverty was also at its peak. For poverty to be the main reason, it has to be the primary reason why the movement gained widespread support. So in other words, poverty has to contribute to popular radicalism more so than any other factor. What you can see on this slide then are the suggestions for how you would break this into your essay. Remember, to hit level 5, you have to show 75% of the time period. So you need to make sure you have covered the majority of the time from 1780 to 1819. So this kind of shows you how I would suggest you map it out. With paragraph 1 focusing on the French Revolution and Tom Paine. The middle of your time period, so paragraph 2, you will talk about the Depression because there was a big depression that hit England in 1815 through to 1819. So you will talk about that in both paragraph 2 and paragraph 3. However, in paragraph 2, I would also expect you to be discussing things like the end of the war and the Corn Laws. And in paragraph 3, I would be expecting you to be mentioning the role of specific key individuals at the time and comparing them to poverty. So we've looked at this conclusion in lesson already, so I'm not going to spend too long going through the ins and outs of what makes this a really strong conclusion, but just take a minute or two to read through this conclusion again. Make sure that you are happy with what the conclusion is arguing. In essence, what I am saying is that poverty is definitely important. It was an underlying cause. However, at the beginning of the time period, the French Revolution and Tom Paine were actually more important than poverty. In the middle of the time period, poverty was definitely more important, as so was it important at the end. But what I'm also leading you towards the conclusion is saying that whilst poverty was really important, ultimately the radical reformers were only ever asking for political change, therefore suggesting that poverty is an underlying cause and it's the desire to make political change that's the main cause for popular radicalism. Anyway, take a couple of minutes to read through this and remind yourself of the conclusion we are taking our essay towards, and then when you are ready, move on to the next slide. Okay, on this slide, you have got my thoughts for an essay plan for this question. Now again, you should have completed this plan in lesson. What I would like you to do before you have a go at writing this essay is get your plan out and compare it to the plan that is now on the screen. It Doesn't mean that this plan here is the only way to do it, but certainly this is a good reference point to check your own to make sure you've got the same sort of level of detail. So again, move on when you've had a good read, give yourself enough time to digest this and compare it against your own plan, and when you're happy with what the plan is suggesting and how you would be arguing it, move on to the next slide. Right, what you have here is an example paragraph 2. So in paragraph 2, we're thinking about the middle of the time period, and what you have here is what I would call probably a very standard level 3 response. So those of you aiming for like a C grade. I've already color coded it according to the skill, and as you can see, one of the reasons why this is a good paragraph is because of the integration of explanation, knowledge, and judgment. It's filtering all the way through the paragraph. There's nothing wrong with the structure. It's actually a very good structure. It's a very solid structure. But things that are holding it back from being a level 5 primarily lie fundamentally with the knowledge. There's nothing wrong with the knowledge in this paragraph. It's just too vague. It doesn't go into enough depth to show me that you confidently understand the topic that you are writing an essay about, and that's what you need to convince the examiner that you have secure knowledge. The explanation and the judgment naturally become more sophisticated if there's more knowledge, because there's just more for you to talk about. I'm not going to read it out to you, so just take a minute to have a read of this paragraph. Like I said, it is a standard paragraph, but we're aiming for the best. So on the next slide will be your level 5 answer, which we will go through in more detail. Okay, here you have a level 5 answer. So assuming you wrote the rest of the essay to the same standard, you have here what would be an A grade, sort of 17, 18, 19 out of 20 essay. The skills are the same, but hopefully what you can see straight away is the paragraph is much longer because there is greater depth in knowledge, which has allowed me to therefore add greater depth of explanation and therefore judgment. What you should notice as well is the paragraph is really clearly split into almost 2 halves. The first half of the paragraph is proving that poverty was a really important reason in the middle of the time period, supported with evidence and an explanation. Then in the middle, signposted by my orange sentence, which starts with however, that is when I switch to the second half of my paragraph, where I'm looking at reasons why poverty is not the only cause at this point in time. So bringing in the importance of the political argument and then ending it with a really clear link back, making it really clear to the examiner that this is what I think about the importance of poverty in the middle of the time period. And you should notice that the judgment at the end mirrors the judgment that is being made throughout the paragraph, so everything ties together into a sustained argument. Take a read. When you've had a read, move on to the next slide. What you should notice, having looked at both of these paragraphs in hopefully a fair bit of detail, you should be able to notice, as I've already sort of hinted, is the depth and quality of knowledge and explanation is far greater in your level 5 answer. The only difference is to do with the amount of depth I have gone into and the understanding of the context I am therefore showing, which is what you need to do if you're aiming for a level 5 and is what I'll be looking for when you hand me in this essay. So what I would like you to do, using your essay plan that you should have now in front of you, and you should have red penned using the one that was on the slide earlier in this presentation, is have a go at answering the question. You have here in front of you an example of a level 3 paragraph and a level 5 paragraph. We are obviously aiming for 3 paragraphs of a level 5 standard. Follow the structure of that paragraph really clearly. We are doing a beginning, middle, end style approach. What you have here is an example paragraph 2, so the middle of the time period. You now need to focus on the start and the end. Have a go. If you have any questions at all, go back to the plan here on the screen, go back to the model answers here on the presentation, have a go at writing your essay in time conditions and bring it to me to mark, and I will give you some feedback. So good luck. and let me know if you have any questions.